Okay, moving on to the next and final team in the Big Ten that we will be going over today. This is going to be the team that I'm going to predict to unfortunately finish in last place in the Big Ten, and that is Chris Collins in his 7th year as the head coach of the Northwestern Wildcats. And it does seem like a very long time ago when all of a sudden this Northwestern basketball program was on top of the world. They finally had won their NCAA tournament game. They got there for the first time in that crazy win against Vanderbilt. You remember the game against Michigan where they won. And it's crazy because this season for Northwestern, I actually think there are some signs of optimism. And I've been harsh on Chris Collins and what he's done with this team over the last couple of years. I feel like he's been very inconsistent in terms of just getting his team ready to play each and every game. And when you're a team like Northwestern, that, let's be real, it's going to be hard for them to win a lot of games during the season. They're going to need to come ready to play it each and every time. And I feel like last year, for the first time in a while, they really showed some optimism. And besides a lot of just brutal early conference losses, or non-conference losses, I should say, maybe we would be feeling a little bit differently about the way this Northwestern team is looking right now. And when you look at their schedule from last season, they had some opportunities to move the needle early. And they had a really nice non-conference win over Providence. And I was hoping that after that one, they could, really gain some momentum. But the problem is they lost to Merrimack. They lost to Radford. They lost to Pitt, which isn't a bad loss, but that's a game you'd want to have. And then they only lost by 5 at home to Michigan State. They only lost by 5 on the road to DePaul. Only lost by 9 against Minnesota on the road. You want to see them be a little bit more competitive, only losing by 4 to Indiana at Assembly Hall. And I actually do think there are some pieces on this Northwestern team that, if you're a Wildcat fan, should make you feel pretty optimistic. You start off with Bo Bowie, the 6'2 sophomore point guard. He averaged 10 and 2 last year, 2.5 assists per game. I think those numbers are only going to get better. They also bring in Chase Audich, the 6'4 redshirt sophomore transfer from William and Mary. He sat out last year, averaged about 9.5 points per game, 4 rebounds a game. Miller Kopp, the 6'7 junior. This is a kid I really like. I think he's in a very good position this season to be that go-to scorer for the Northwestern Wildcats. And then Pete Nance and Robbie Barron will both return as well. I'm a big fan of Robbie Barron. I think he could be a guy that has breakout written all over him this season. He averaged 5 and 3 last year, and I think this year he's going to get a little bit more of an opportunity with guys like AJ Turner and Pat Spencer no longer in the equation. Shout out to Pat Spencer, man. That guy, for a dude that was playing college lacrosse, he was a very good point guard for Northwestern. But going back to the Northwestern point guards, I'm a big fan of Bo Bowie. I think he's their most dynamic perimeter weapon and most potent creator in the pick and roll. He missed the team's first 5 games after the new year last year, and he was limited at times after that, putting a lot of pressure on Pat Spencer, who was the grad transfer point guard. He was playing his first year of collegiate hoops, and he did a really good job in the role. But I feel like Bowie, he could determine just what exactly the ceiling for the future of this Northwestern program is. And they also bring in a 4-star recruit at point guard, Ty Berry. That adds another on-ball handler with some flair, though overlying on a freshman is traditionally not a route to an efficient offense. And I feel like with Bo Bowie, they could maybe hopefully ride that into some momentum going forward. And I feel like also Miller Kopp is a really good player, and he's going to be one of the starting on the wings, and he makes up for his lack of physicality by bending the court with his shooting, and he's a really skilled offensive player, and one of the rare instances for this Northwestern team that he could really score the ball. Pete Nance is the other guy, along with Robbie Barron, that are going to make up the front court. Ryan Young up there as well. Nance and Barron were both 4-star recruits out of high school, so the pedigree is there, but they'll need to shore up some weaknesses in their games to be, I think, effective Big Ten players this year. They also bring in the promising freshman Jared Jones. He transferred, so thin freshman Matt Nicholson may be pressed into duty right away, although it might behoove Collins to experiment with some small ball lineups with Kopp as a stretch 4 instead. And I feel like it's going to be very interesting to see how exactly Chris Collins does with this team, because once again, I've been a little critical of Chris Collins and the job he's done so far during his couple seasons in Northwestern, and most notably over the last 2 or 3 seasons. I feel like the momentum really stopped rather quickly with this Northwestern team, and if I was a Wildcat fan, I would have just wanted them to be better. Chris Collins has consistently brought in talented recruits over the past few off seasons, and adding a guy like Chase Audich into the mix this season with Bowie and Miller Kopp, that gives you, once again, I think, some optimism when you look at this Northwestern team. Bo Bowie could be a star at point guard with more improvements to his game. Ty Berry gives him a possible long-term running mate on both ends of the ball. The problem is that Northwestern simply has not been difficult to play against. The offense is not particularly complex and lacks the depth of shooting to strain opponents, and the defensive system won't really harass other opponents at all or force turnovers, and it's going to be played on the perimeter or in the paint until Northwestern is able to find ways to dictate how the game is played and to really control the game at their pace. The rest of the Big Ten are going to use them as games to make up and really win. But at the same time, if you're a Northwestern fan, at the worst, you just want to see your team be somewhat competitive this season, because over the last couple of years, I totally understand why, if you're a Wildcat fan, you look at what has happened and just say, wow, like, what are we even doing here? Like, just want our team to be good. We just want our team to be competitive. And it just seems like so long ago where there was so much optimism around Nate Taphorn making that shot against Michigan and somehow, some way guiding the Northwestern Wildcats into the NCAA tournament for the first time. I believe that in order for them to get there, they're still a long ways away. I'm not 100% sure if Chris Collins is necessarily the right coach to get them in the right direction and lead them towards the NCAA tournament. But at the same time, I do think that for the first time in a while, there's some optimism. So I'm curious to see what Northwestern will be going forward.